integrate of sine ax plus b by dx equals 1 over a negative cosine ax plus b, then plus c or k. Why we wrote negative? Because if you differentiate cosine will be negative sign, so negative negative will be positive. Integrate of cosine ax plus b by dx is equal to 1 over a sine ax plus b, then plus k. Integrate of sec squared ax plus b by dx is equal to 1 over a tan ax plus b, then plus k. Today, inshallah, we'll discuss how to integrate sine squared, cosine squared, and tan squared. Before integrate sine squared x by dx, and also will explain cosine squared x by dx, then explain tan squared x by dx. Do you remember cosine 2x equals what? Double angle, cosine 2x. We have 3 rules for cosine 2x, 3 identities. Cosine 2x. You can prove it. 2x is x plus x. Cosine minus sine. So cosine squared minus sine squared. This is the first one. Split 2x as x plus x. Then cosine minus sine. So the first one will be cosine squared minus sine squared. Cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Then start to remove. Sine squared x and substitute by 1 minus cosine squared x, and simplify your answer. You will get cosine 2x is 2 cosine x squared minus 1. And you can substitute by cosine squared will be 1 minus sine squared x, then simplify. You will get the third one, which is cosine 2x is equal. If you remove cosine squared and write, you will get 1 minus 2 sine squared x. From the second and the third identity, we explained how to get cosine squared x as a subject. By moving -1 to the other side will be plus, then divided by 2. So cosine squared x is half, open bracket, 1 plus cosine 2x. By the same way, you can get sine squared as a subject, but because its sign is negative, move to the left side to be positive and move to cosine 2x to the right. Then you will get sine squared x is equal to half, open bracket, 1 minus cosine 2x. We'll use these 2 identities to integrate sine squared and the cosine squared. We'll use the identity of sine squared and cosine squared to get. So now I will start to explain how to integrate sine squared, then explain cosine squared by using these 2 identities. Now integrate sine squared x by dx. Start to remove sine squared and write this identity. Sine squared is half 1 minus cosine 2x by dx. Half is constant value, leave it. How to integrate 1? Is x. Integrate 1 is x minus. We explained how to get integrate of cosine to x. 1 over 2 sine 2x. 1 over 2, which is 1 over a, then sine 2x plus k. You can expand, will be half x minus 4th sine 2x plus k. This is the integration of sine squared. By the same way, if I ask it to integrate cosine squared x by dx, remove cosine squared and get the identity which includes cosine to x, which is half 1 plus cosine 2x by dx, then start to integrate. Half integrate of 1 is x plus integrate of cosine 2x 1 over 2 sine 2x, sine 2x, then write k. Integrate of sine squared and integrate of cosine squared. Again, the identity now, sine squared x is 1 over 2, 1 minus cosine 2x. So if it is sine squared 2x, sine squared 2x, what is the identity of cosine squared 2x? Have 1 minus cosine what? 4x. If it is here x, so will be 2x. So if it is 2x, will be cosine 4x. So if I ask it to integrate sine squared 2x, by the same way, cosine squared 2x. What is the identity of cosine squared 2x? 1 over 2, 1 plus cosine 4x. If here it's x, so will be 2x. If it is 2x, will be 4x. If it is 3, 4, so don't forget to write that down. No, I'm asking the identity. It's not integration. So the integration clear? I explained how to get integrate of sine squared, integrate of cosine squared. So how to integrate tan squared? Integrate of tan squared, if you remember the identity, which included 1 plus tan squared x is equal what? Sec squared x. So when I ask you to integrate tan squared, get it as a subject from this identity. Integrate tan squared x by dx. Integrate, remove tan, and write it in terms of 6 squared. Will be 6 squared minus 1. Sec squared x minus 1 by dx. We already have to integrate 6 squared. Integrate of 6 squared is what? Tan. Integrate of 6 squared tan. Differentiation of tan is 6 squared. Will be tan x minus integrate of 1 is x, then plus constant of integration. If I ask it to integrate tan squared 2x by dx, remove tan squared and write what? 1 minus sec squared 2x by dx. Integrate of 1 is x. Integrate of 6 squared tan, but we have a coefficient. Will be 1 over 2, then tan 2x, then plus constant. Yes, I switched the order. Okay, right. Sec squared 2x minus 1. So this is will be minus, and this will be plus. 1 over 2 tan 2x, then minus x plus constant of integration. For this is for sine and cosine. The identity which is connected between tan squared and sec squared, 1 plus tan squared is sec squared. So if it is 1 plus tan squared 2x, will be sec squared 2x. Same. But this is for the double, will be half will be double. These two questions done. How to integrate sine squared? Have 1 minus cosine 2x. This is the identity by dx. Then start to integrate. Have is constant. 1 will be x. Integrate of cosine is 1 over 2 sine 2x. Part B, cosine squared, keep 3. Remove cosine squared 2x and write what? Have 1 plus cosine what? 4x. Then by dx. So we can write this number as 3 over 2. Then start to integrate. Integrate of 1 is x. Integrate of cosine 4x is 1 over 4. Then sine 4x. Then plus constant of integration. What about sine to the power of 4? Sine power 4. And sine power of 3 also will explain it. Sine to the power of 4x. You can write it. You have a question? You can remove sine squared power 4 and write it sine squared x all to the power of 2 by dx. This step is clear? Yes. Sine squared all to the power of 2. Today we discussed how to remove sine squared and get the identity which included cosine. Will be 1 over 2 1 minus cosine 2x all to the power of what? Of 2. Square power 2 and square 1 minus cosine 2x. 1 over 2 squared is 1 over 4. The first squared, the second squared, first by second by 2, cosine 2x by dx. Step is clear? First, sine power 4, make it squared power 2. Remove sine squared and write have 1 minus cosine 2x, all squared. Square both, have is 1 over 4. Identity power of 2, 3 terms, first squared, second squared, first by second by 2. You can integrate 1, which is x. You can integrate cosine 2x, which is 1 over 2 sine 2x. What about cosine squared? Again, remove cosine squared and write the identity, which is half, open bracket, 1 minus sine, cosine what? 4x. I will write this identity. We explain how to write cosine squared x. Cosine squared x is half 1 plus cosine 2x. So if it is cosine squared 2x will be half 1 plus cosine what?
4x.
4x. So I started to remove and write it. Fourth, 1 minus 2 cosine 2x. Remove cosine squared 2x will be half 1 plus cosine 4x all by dx. Now you can simplify more before integrate, or integrate then simplify. I will simplify first. Fourth, when you expand half by 1 will be half, then half cosine 4x. So 1 plus half is 1.5, which is 3 over 2, minus 2 cosine 2x plus 1 over 2 cosine 4x by dx. Then start to integrate, keep fourth outside. Integrate of 3 over 2 will be 3 over 2x minus 2. How to integrate cosine 2x? 1 over a, 1 over 2. Then sine 2x plus half 1 over a, which is 4. Then sine 4x all plus k. Simplify. Half times 3 over 2, 3 over 8x. Then you can simplify 2.5 is 1 times 4th sine 2x. Then 1 over 2 times 1 over 4, 1 over 8 will be 1 over 32 sine 4x plus k. Well, how to integrate cosine to the power of 4x? I will explain how to integrate sine cube and cosine cube, but I will tell you why I started to explain cosine power 4x. Cosine power 4x, I will write it cosine squared x all to the power of 2 by dx, or cosine squared times the cosine squared. What is the identity of cosine squared? Half 1 plus cosine 2x all to the power of 2 by dx. Expand identity power of 2, you will get 3 terms. Integrate 1 over 2 squared will be 1 over 4 squared, first squared, first by second by 2, second squared, cosine squared 2x by dx. Again, identity, cosine squared 2x, remove it and write what? Half 1 plus cosine 4x. Half 1 plus 2 cosine 2x plus cosine squared 2x is 1 over 2, 1 plus cosine 4x all by dx. After expanding.
In the beginning.
Yeah, it's 1 over 4. Yes, correct. Now, if you expand this part, will be have, then have cosine 4x. 1 over 2 plus 1 is 3 over 2 plus 2 cosine 2x plus 1 over 2 cosine 4x by dx. Now we'll start to integrate. You can keep half outside, fourth outside. Integrate of 3 over 2 is 3 over 2x plus 2. Integrate of cosine is 1 over 2 sine 2x plus 1 over 2. Integrate of cosine 1 over 4 sine 4x. Then plus c or k. Simplify will be 3 over 8x. Simplify 1 over 4 sine 2x. 1 over 32 sine 4x plus k. This is integrate of sine power 4 and the cosine power 4.
Does it matter if it's sine 2x or sine x?
Sine
2x or sine x? Sine x negative.
integrate of cosine sine.
No, cosine, we have cosine x or cosine 2x. Value.
Cosine 2x and cosine 4x.
Cosine x, cosine 2x. There's a difference.
For integration,
It's cosine x power 2 and cosine 2x power 2. Or power 4. Okay?
to integrate sine cube x, I will connect it by this identity first, then start to integrate. Let's start now to explain how to write sine 3x in terms of sine x. Split 3x to be 2x and x. Then sine sum will be sine
2x, sine x,
cosine plus
sine 2x,
cosine sine. Then sine 2x, remove it and write what? 2 sine x cosine x times cosine x plus. Remove cosine 2x and write what? We have 3 identities, but I need to write the expression in terms of what? Of sine. So write the third one. 1 minus 2 sine square x multiplied by sine x. Expand and simplify. 2 cosine times cosine is cosine squared. So remove it and write 1 minus sine squared x plus expand sine x minus 2 sine cube x. Simplify 2 sine x minus 2 sine cube x plus sine x minus 2 sine cube x. Simplify 3 sine x minus 4 sine cube x. This is what? Sine 3x. Sine 3x. Sine 3x equals 3 sine x. Part 2, integrate, yes. The question is maybe written as write sine 3x in the form of sine x, or show that, maybe it's written like this in the exam. Show that sine 3x is equal to, start to split 3x as 2x and x, Sine, cosine, cosine, sine. Sine 2x, remove it and write 2 sine cosine, which is identity. Cosine, we already have cosine from the expanded form. Sine, cosine, cosine, sine. And the sine 2x is 2 sine cosine. Identity is double sine. Sine 2x is 2 sine x cosine x. Cosine multiplied by cosine is cosine squared, but remove it and write 1 minus sine squared. Then simplify and get this answer. Now, part 2, integrate sine cube x by dx. But I will explain later, inshallah, without using this identity, how to integrate it. Sine 3x is equal to 3 sine x minus 4 sine cube x. How to integrate sine cube from part 1? Try to do what? Try to find sine cube as a subject. We'll remove sine cube from right to left to be positive. Now I will try to get sine cube subject from this form. A minus, move to the left side. 4 sine cube x is equal 3 sine x minus sine 3x. Clear? 10 divided by 4. Sine cube x is equal 1 over 4, 3 sine x minus sine 3x. Now, you can integrate sine cube. Remove sine cube and write 4th 3 sine x minus sine 3x by dx. Now you can integrate sine and you can integrate sine 3x. 4th bracket 3. Integrate of sine is negative cosine x. Easy. Integrate of sine is negative cosine x. Integrate of sine, negative cosine x, minus integrate of sine 3x, negative 1/3 1 over a, negative 1 over a, which is negative 1 over 3, cosine 3x plus k. You can simplify. Negative 3/4 cosine x, negative negative is positive, 1 over 12 cosine 3x, then plus k. By the same way, you can now integrate cosine cube x by dx. Part 1, he asked to write cosine 3x in terms of cosine x, then use it for integration. Then you can start with cosine 3x is equal to cosine 2x plus x, expanded form, simplify, get your answer in terms of cosine. Then to integrate cosine cube, get it as a subject, then